Welcome to Coffee and Donuts. I'm Frank Magaha. If you don't know who I am, I'm a former federal law enforcement officer that's now a full-time law enforcement instructor. I'm one of the very few in the entire world who's ever been able to honor grad the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. I have to say, though, the reason I do this is because none of my accomplishments are my own. I've had great mentors and guidance throughout my career that's really allowed me to excel, and that's what I want to do for you. So, Coffee and Donuts is opened up to all my coaching members, but the first segments of it is me answering public comments and public questions so that I can give back to you, just like what was done during my career. Let's jump into it. Welcome, everyone. We have some big announcements today. So if you're attending, this is going to be a good one for you. What I'm going to say is for everyone attending, remain with your cameras off and on mute until we open it up for live questions. I have some pre-submitted questions I will go over here first, and then we will get into some of the big announcements that I have for you guys. So, first question pre-submitted. I've completed all the steps and the last one background, and I haven't heard anything in a month. Any insight? I've completed all the steps in the background. Okay. So for this particular question, if it's been over a month, 4 weeks is kind of my deadline. That's where I cut it off. At the 4 week mark, at usually the earliest, if you've had zero contact, and I mean complete ghost contact, then I would send a professional follow-up email. If you want to know where to get one of those are in our online course that everyone here attending has access to. So there's complete templates in there where you can send it, where you can send that email, that professional follow-up email, without actually asking about a follow-up, but it implies for them to give you an answer, right? So it's not you pestering your background investigator or your hiring official saying, hey, just curious about my status. No, it's you kind of trying to give, hey, do you need anything else from me? And then a little bit more that goes with it, right? But 4 weeks is that cutoff. If you've finished everything and you have the academy coming up and there's a deadline here, and it's 4 weeks, then you definitely want to reach out to your background investigator. Now, that's not a catch-all, right? If they say they're trying to get you in an academy and that academy starts in 3 weeks and it's only been 2 weeks since you've heard from them, you might want to reach out if they said they're trying to get you into that academy, because they might just be busy. Things might be falling through the gaps. Once academy classes start happening, a lot of people start getting busy. There's a lot that can be considered, but on a typical basis, we set the bare minimum at 4 weeks, 6 weeks if you can wait, if you're working with other departments or you're busy, but 4 weeks if you haven't heard anything from the departments, and that's zero contact. That's not, oh, I haven't heard from my background investigator in 4 weeks, but I heard from the hiring official that they scheduled my medical exam in 2 weeks. No, if you have another component coming up, then there's no point in reaching out to them. They're most likely just waiting until you finish this next component. So that 4 week time frame, not for this particular question because they're done everything, but that 4 week time frame, if you have a polygraph scheduled, or if you have a medical scheduled, or a psychological scheduled, don't reach out to them. Don't pester them. Don't be that person. It just makes you look bad. And then if they do need something from you, or if they are kind of on the fence about you, you don't want to push them in the negative direction. So that's one thing you want to consider. That's the first question. Okay. Next question is, how would you handle with post wanting previous? So post is just pretty much police officer selection, wanting previous neighbors' contact information when you didn't have any contact with them, with any of your neighbors. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'd love to sit here and say, yeah, oh, you'll be fine. No, you need to contact those neighbors, right? You need to. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to give you information, right? But you need to make that reasonable attempt. So that reasonable attempt looks like this. If you still live there, go knock on the door. If you have their phone number, give them a call, right? Leave them a voicemail. If they don't get back with you, they don't get back with you. If you've knocked on their door once or twice and no one's answered, or they didn't come to the door, that's fine. If you've made contact with them and they said, no, sorry, I don't want to be contacted by law enforcement. Please don't put me down as a reference. You'll just say, hey, I appreciate that. I'll let them know. I can't control them, but I'll try to let them know that you don't wish to be contacted, right? Keep that neighborly, persona, so to say. Don't break a relationship with your neighbor just because you're applying, but be professional about it. Just advise them, hey, I'll do my best to advise them you don't want to be contacted. They're still going to contact them or attempt to contact them. Then, if you cannot get any information, you provide the information that you do have access to. If you know John Smith, your neighbor's number, you put that down. If it's old residents and you never made contact with any of your neighbors and never had any neighbor contacts, then you're going to put down maybe your old landlord or any old roommates, or if it's an apartment complex, the apartment manager or the condo manager's name and phone number. Anything you can do to provide a reference for that location that you lived. As long as you make a reasonable attempt, you'll be fine. If you don't make a reasonable attempt, and then they kind of sit down with you during your investigative interview, right? Your background investigation interview, and they say, "Hey, what was the deal here?" Like, "Oh, yeah, that's John. He didn't want to be contacted." Okay, well, I don't care if John wants to be contacted. That's part of a security clearance check. So, what's John's contact information? Oh, I got his phone number. You at least have his address. He's your neighbor, right? You can't at least not put down the fact that he's your neighbor, right? You have the address right there. You can at least list that so they can mail something out. But big thing, they're considered a reference. So here's what you need for your reference. You need name, phone number, email address, and then actual address, physical address. That's typically what you could use for a reference, and that usually handles any type of reference you need. If you get those four things, name, email address, phone number, and physical address, you should be good to go. All right, next question. Would love to go into more detail into the psych exam, as it seems like it's the most daunting portion of the hiring process. Yes, the psych exam has quickly become the hardest part of the hiring process. Understand that with the psych, there's reason why we have two underlying core components of your psych training, right? If you're going through your online course, and that is your question correlation, understanding what questions are being asked and the repetitive order they're being asked, even though it might be slightly different. And then the other part is closing the loop, which is just all of your articulation training put into effect so that you don't open any type of unnecessary doors, right? So that you stay specific and you don't elaborate, because you don't want to go down a tangent on religion and your psychologist is an atheist. If you haven't heard that story before, that happened to one of the alumni from our coaching program, one of your peers. And it was daunting for her, and we managed to get her through it, and she actually passed with the original psychologist. But you don't want to have that. You don't want them to be judging you based on your age if you're a younger applicant because they think you might be immature. No, you want to be able to articulate yourself in a mature fashion. If they open a door, hey, tell me why you think you're able to handle this profession at such a young age. Well, I appreciate that. I've done XYZ in my life, but ultimately the minimal age to require is 21. I'm currently 22. I believe in the standard that the department set. If they said, hey, the standard was 24, then I would wait till I was 24 to apply to them. Right. And that's it. Right. You're not going into this, well, I feel that I'm mature and I've done this and I've graduated from college. So I've shown, no, you're not going to get into that. They're going to write you down individual, it appears combative or aggressive, and you're going to fail your psych. So there's a lot there that you really want to be cognizant of when it comes to your actual closing the loop, right? That's why we focus on those two core components. But yeah, the psych is the most strenuous part. They are really rough on younger applicants or applicants that have had some type of past interactions with mental health professionals, right? They're always diving into them, right? That's their job. They're supposed to make sure that you're mentally sound. I do think that psychologists kind of overstep their role in some aspects and kind of start looking at as their role as a background investigator, but that's not here nor there. Big thing is the two main components. There's a lot more, but the two main components is for your written psych exam, which is your question correlation, and then your Can't think right now. Oh, you're closing the loop, which is your articulation. So, and real quick, your question correlation would look like this. I believe my father is a good man. And then 20 questions later, I I like how my parents raised me. Those questions correlate, right? Another question later on is when I grow up, I want to be like my father. Another question correlation. Uh, my parents had a good marriage, right? Another question correlate. All those questions can correlate with one another, and depending on how you answer them, will kind of get flagged as you go and get into a more specific, I guess, diagnosis of your personality, and that's what they're going to make questions based off of. So you want to be cognizant of that. Okay, that wraps up the pre-submitted questions. Now, let's jump into it. I see that one question was already submitted. I will get to that. But before I do, what do you all want? You all want to ask your questions first? And just let me know in the chat or whatever you want to do. Do you all want to ask me your questions first, or you want me to tell you about the things we got going on? Hey, before I let you go, I did want to ask real quick, if you enjoy this, know that we go in and we answer all the questions on YouTube. And then if you have any enjoyment from the podcast, from the audio podcast, no matter where you're watching it, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of the other platforms, please leave us a review and like and share it. That's how we get out there, and then that shows me that this is the content that you all want to see, and then it's actually being beneficial. So if you have a comment and you want to ask a quick question, you can ask it over on YouTube. We try to answer all of them for as long as we can, as well as any of the extra gifts that we have for you. But additionally, you can go on to our website. It's Armagan CT, so ARMOGANCT.com. And up there we have live free trainings that we do as well occasionally. And you can keep checking there and see if that's something that you want to jump onto. I hope this all helps you. As I said before, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.